They said I was the luckiest bride alive. Diamond ring, private beach wedding, a man who whispered promises like poetry. But as I stood beneath the floral arch, the seats behind him sat empty. No mother, no sister, not even a single text. "They're traditional," he said, brushing it off. I smiled for the camera, but something cracked inside me. A week later, I found a burned wedding dress outside my door and a note in handwriting I didn't recognize. Just 3 letters. Run. That's when I realized I wasn't his first wife, and I wouldn't be the last if I stayed quiet. I should have known something was wrong the moment he proposed. 3 months in, no fights, no secrets, or so I thought. Alex knelt in the middle of a rooftop garden, framed by fairy lights and champagne bubbles. I said yes before he finished asking. He slipped a diamond onto my finger so heavy it felt like a shackle, disguised as luxury. The house came next, a white modern villa overlooking the Pacific. "I want us to start our forever with no shadows," he told me as I ran my fingers across marble countertops. "No shadows," he said. And yet, none of the lights ever reached his past. Our wedding was like a Pinterest board come to life. Private beach, a designer gown, string quartet playing Lana Del Rey as I walked barefoot through soft sand. I held my breath walking down the aisle, eyes locked on Alex's. His smile was steady. But behind him, rows of empty chairs, marked reserved for groom's family, sat in silence. Not a single soul. "They had a last-minute emergency," he whispered before placing the ring. "They're a bit traditional." I nodded. What else could I do? The kiss was quick, the applause thin. I posed for the photos, each frame like a lie printed in high resolution. Then came the reception. Laughter, clinking glasses, toasts from my side of the family. We danced under fairy lights while the ocean whispered its secrets. But even the ocean knew what I was trying to ignore. The cake arrived. 7 tiers of fondant perfection, but when they rolled it out, my name was missing. "Congratulations, Alex," written in gold. Just Alex. I laughed it off, pretending it was a bakery mix-up. The photographer caught my smile. He didn't catch the tightening in my chest. And then, the girl. She was maybe 10, curly brown hair and a pink dress with mismatched socks. No one knew whose guess she was. She tugged at my sleeve as I stepped off the dance floor. "Are you his 3rd or 4th wife?" she asked, genuinely curious. I stared at her. "What?" "Alex, my aunt says he keeps marrying girls like you." She skipped away before I could respond. I turned, looking for Alex, but he was gone, speaking to the band. That night, I lay beside him, unable to sleep. I watched him breathe, studied the soft rise and fall of a man who swore I was his forever. But something had fractured inside me. I didn't know if it was truth or paranoia, and I didn't know yet that they were the same thing in this story. A week later, I found the package. It sat on the front porch. No postage, no return address. Inside, a scorched wedding dress, yellowed at the seams, and a single folded note in block letters. "Run." I sat on the floor for hours, the dress on my lap like a ghost. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just stared. Later that night, when Alex came home, I asked him casually, "Have you ever been married before?" His eyes didn't flicker. "No." "Why?" "No reason," I said, folding laundry that wasn't mine. A red scarf appeared in the load. I didn't own anything red. When he went to shower, I opened his laptop. Password, my middle name. Inside, I found archived photos. 2 weddings, 2 different women. One in Greece, one in Iceland, both smiling, both gone. Their names weren't searchable. Their socials wiped clean, but message boards whispered their stories. Delusional bride, obsessive woman, mental breakdown. They'd been labeled mad before they disappeared. I was next. I could feel it. The tone in Alex's voice when I asked questions, the subtle gaslighting. "You're overthinking again, love." The way he flinched when I brought up family. They're private people. I started documenting everything. every word, every time he raised his voice, every moment that felt scripted. Still, I stayed. Until one night, as I brushed my hair before bed, I noticed a small slit behind the bathroom mirror. Curious, I pried it open. Inside was a dusty flash drive labeled only EM number 3. And in that moment, I understood. He didn't love me. I was just another file. Another version of a bride meant to play a role, hit her cues, and vanish before Act 2. But I had read the script now, and I wasn't going anywhere until I rewrote the ending. After the flash drive, I stopped doubting myself. The denial cracked, then collapsed completely. I wasn't overthinking. I was under surveillance, under design. That night, I didn't sleep. I coded. By sunrise, our home had new eyes. Micro cameras tucked in light fixtures, air vents even inside a false outlet in Alex's office. I ran cables through the walls, synced everything to a private server under an alias I hadn't used since college. The name Invert. I didn't stop at hardware. I installed financial monitoring software and began feeding data into a custom AI I built during my cybersecurity days. I called it Mirror. Its sole purpose to detect behavioral loops, deception markers, and social mapping patterns. Within 3 days, Mirror flagged a sequence. Pattern match. Subject Alex exhibits repeated behavioral stages across separate relational timelines. Mirror loop probability, 92%. Translation? He ran the same psychological program on all his wives. The seduction, the isolation, the discrediting, the disappearance. Mirror built a behavioral map, color-coded, terrifying. First came the praise, then small corrections to confidence. Maybe don't wear that. You're better when you don't speak too much in public. Then the disconnection. Don't worry about work. I've got us. The redefinition. You're emotional, just like the others. And finally, the erasure. I stared at the chart, heart pounding. Even the words he used were nearly identical across the audio archives. You're imagining things. You're too much. I'm trying to help you. Help me disappear. The chilling part was how seamless it all felt while it was happening, like hypnosis done in daylight. I had believed it, believed him, until now. One evening, while reviewing flagged audio logs, Mirror pinged an alert. I froze. Keyword detected, phase 3. I hit play. It was a recording from the dining room 3 nights ago. I'd stepped out to answer a call. In that window, Alex and his mother had spoken. Her voice, calm and precise, floated through the speakers. Phase 3 begins after the first sign of defiance. She's already asking about the past. Soon she'll get defensive. That's when we need to document outbursts, frame the instability. My hands went cold. This wasn't just a pattern, it was a manual. I clicked save and encrypted the file. Phase 3. That meant they were already prepping the world to believe I was insane. But I wasn't. I was awake. The next step was education. I spent the next 48 hours deep diving into digital remnants of the previous wives. I cross-referenced aliases, VPN logs, real estate records, deleted forums. I even found an anonymous Medium article titled "Married a Ghost," written in the exact tone of the girl in the Iceland photos. She wasn't crazy. She was cornered. I started writing. Page by page, I compiled their patterns. I documented how to respond to gaslighting, how to reverse guilt programming, how to speak in neutral tone while subverting control. I called the document the Mirror Protocol. At night, I rehearsed. I changed the way I walked, where I looked. I inserted unpredictable delays into my reactions, just enough to throw off his rhythm. When Alex said, "You're quiet today," I responded with a warm smile and a blank stare. When he tried to provoke emotion, I gave none. When he offered affection, I accepted it like a test subject taking notes. And it worked. He began slipping. Losing the control, he didn't realize he needed to breathe. He repeated questions, misread cues, started monitoring me more aggressively because he couldn't read me anymore. I was no longer a wife in his program. I was the error. Then came the opening I needed. While Alex was away on a 2-day trip, I reviewed security footage from his mother's last visit. She didn't know about the new cameras. One clip stood out. She stood in the living room, wine glass in hand, speaking to herself, or so she thought. Emma will be the cleanest takedown yet. She's already halfway unbalanced. With the right nudge, we'll push her off the edge. Blame childhood trauma. Say it runs in her family. Nobody questions instability when it's a woman. The calm with which she said it was worse than shouting. It was professional, like she'd done it before. I clipped the footage, posted it on Reddit, anonymous, through a throwaway account traced to her daughter's old burner phone number, just enough to cause chaos in their camp. By midnight, the post hit 20,000 upvotes. The next morning, Alex slammed his phone on the counter, pale. "Someone's spreading lies about my mom," he said, pacing. "The internet's insane." "Must be," I said, sipping tea. He didn't notice the faint smile on my lips. It was working. The game had started. And this time, I wasn't the one being played. The moment Alex started watching me harder, I gave him exactly what he wanted to see. I stopped coding, stopped asking questions. I let the dishes pile up, left lights on, forgot birthdays. I slipped into the role they wrote for me, fragile, forgetful, overwhelmed. I played it so well he began bringing me tea, checking on my naps, gently suggesting I maybe take a break from the internet. It worked. They loosened their grip, thinking I was folding. While they watched my meltdowns, I studied theirs. Through planted audio bugs in his office, I tracked every phone call. Through the financial surveillance I set up weeks ago, I traced his daily transactions, until one flagged offshore wire transfer popped up under my name. My blood froze. The account belonged to a shell company registered in Belize. The name? Elmira Consulting, filed under my maiden name, my signature forged with unsettling precision. The company had one known function: transaction routing between private equity firms and cryptocurrency pools. In simpler terms, money laundering. I dug deeper. Elmira had only existed once before, 5 years ago under another woman's name. When I cross-checked photos, it was her. Wife number 2, the one from Iceland. She vanished shortly after being declared bankrupt due to fraudulent mismanagement. A perfect fall story. No one questioned it. Now it was my turn. I collected every document. Every transaction log, screenshotted every timestamp. I didn't run. I didn't even panic. Instead, I smiled wider at dinner. Let him think he's winning. Then the letter came, hand-delivered, a Department of Financial Crimes subpoena addressed to me. I wasn't just a pawn now. I was the scapegoat, the sacrifice to protect their legacy. Attached was the name of the anonymous whistleblower, Alex. He turned me in before I even knew I was guilty. I stared at the page, heart silent, brain in overdrive. I didn't cry. I evolved. The next morning, I met with Leona, a media consultant I'd followed since college. She specialized in what she called reputation inversion, turning perceived weakness into dominant narrative. "I'm being erased," I told her. She nodded once. "Then we paint your ghost before they can." We started with framing. I released a video, me, tearful, sitting on the kitchen floor, recounting a vague, painful spiral. No names, no accusations, just grief. "I don't even know what's real anymore," I said. "I think they want me to disappear like the others." It went viral overnight. Comments poured in. Half sympathy, half suspicion, just enough noise. Then phase 2. Using metadata and bank logs, we dropped redacted files onto Reddit and Twitter, posted by anonymous accounts that appeared to be whistleblowers. The timing matched news cycles. Slowly, suspicion shifted. Is she the manipulator or the manipulated? I didn't answer. I let speculation do its work, but the opposition responded faster than I expected. 2 nights later, Alex's sister went live. She sat on her couch, face raw with false emotion. "Emma is dangerous," she told over 50,000 viewers. "She lies. She's faking it. She's trying to destroy my family." Then came the fatal mistake. As she talked, the screen flickered. Her mouth moved one way, her words said another. Because the live stream wasn't real. It was mine. I deep-faked her using hours of recorded footage, AI-generated synthesis, and just enough truth to bury her. On stream, she admitted, "We planned her breakdown. We wanted her gone. The money? All hers, technically. That was the plan." The internet erupted. Some viewers screamed, "Hoax!" Others clipped the moment, uploaded it everywhere. The damage was done. Real or fake, perception had shifted. And I wasn't anonymous anymore. My name was trending. Emma Nolan, the programmed bride who fought back. Alex called that night, voice shaking. "What the hell did you do?" "I don't know," I said. "Must be another phase." I hung up before he could scream. I went to the bathroom, washed my face, stared into the mirror. Not to check my makeup, to remind myself who the hell I was. They expected me to scream, to fall apart, to post rebuttals, fire legal threats, drag their names through the mud like some desperate soap opera character. But I didn't. I went quiet. And in silence, I did the most dangerous thing of all. I prepared. The first thing I did was organize the archive. Every recorded call, forged signature, wire transfer, fake diagnosis, and manipulation protocol, organized into encrypted folders. I labeled them by theme: financial fraud, emotional gaslighting, legal entrapment, psychological warfare, even one labeled scripted madness, containing the breakdown patterns used to dismantle each previous wife. I didn't upload it, not to Reddit, not to any news outlet. I sent it directly to Everett & Coors, a name Alex never mentioned, but one I knew from Mirror's business analysis logs, a global firm that once tried to buy into his family's empire and was publicly humiliated for it. Their CEO, Dominic Everett, was rumored to have nearly lost his career in the fallout, but I had proof, emails, audio, hidden NDAs, that the family's sabotage had been deliberate. So I gave Dominic a new weapon: truth. The response was swift. An encrypted call arrived within 12 hours. I answered. "Ms. Nolan," a calm British voice said, "Mr. Everett would like to invite you to a closed advisory board meeting. He believes your experience offers perspective." I didn't flinch. "When?" "Tonight. Private location. You'll be safe." Safety wasn't what I wanted. Power was. Not revenge. Elevation. That night, I stood in a room full of men twice my age, every one of them watching me like I was either a myth or a weapon. I wore white again, but this time, not as a bride, as the ghost of their failure. I spoke for 2 hours, laid out the structure of manipulation, the laundering mechanisms, the psychological algorithms Alex's family used to discredit, disable, and erase. I gave them names, assets, vulnerabilities, and in return, I didn't ask for money. I asked for leverage. Everett's eyes didn't leave me once. "And what would you like, Ms. Nolan?" "Advisory role, 3-year contract, full access." "To what end?" I smiled. "I want to build a firewall so strong that no woman ends up archived again." He nodded. "Welcome aboard." By morning, I was on their board. My face didn't appear in any press releases. My name didn't trend. I didn't need it to. I was building legacy through the back door of empire. While my husband's family scrambled to control public perception, I watched from the shadows, letting their desperation leak out through their own cracks. Alex went on a podcast to tell his side. He stammered through talking points, avoided every direct question. His sister tried to sue me twice, and both cases were dismissed. Their lawyers leaked half-truths, but it only fed curiosity. And I said nothing. No posts, no interviews, no tears. I deleted my Instagram. I ghosted the media. I became the silence they couldn't defend against. The more I said nothing, the more they were forced to speak. And in every explanation, they contradicted themselves. It was like watching them drown while arguing whether the water was real. When the subpoena for Alex's mother dropped, she arrived in court draped in pearls and denial. I didn't testify. I sat in the back row, legs crossed, expression unreadable. Someone snapped a photo of me that day. It went viral. Not because of what I wore or how I looked, but because I didn't speak a single word. I just watched. They called me the Bride of Strategy, and I didn't correct them. Behind the scenes, I used Everett's infrastructure to slowly buy shares in the holding company that owned Alex's main assets, quietly, legally, strategically. Each acquisition moved through shell partners and funds tied to my advisory role. Piece by piece, I carved my initials into the bones of their dynasty. The final buyout happened on a Wednesday. Alex received the paperwork while hosting a webinar on emotional intelligence in leadership. His face paled mid-sentence. I didn't need to watch the stream to know what part he'd reached. I knew the line by heart. Controlling stakeholder. Nobody, Inc. He would have laughed if he wasn't being dismantled. The name wasn't a joke. It was a message. I wasn't Emma Nolan anymore. I wasn't a bride, a wife, a victim, a headline, a cautionary tale. I was nobody they could define, own, erase, or rewrite. That night, I returned to the house we once shared, not to move back in, but to stand in it one last time. I walked through each room, silent. The living room where I first found the slit behind the mirror, the kitchen where I played the crying video, the hallway where I practiced speaking like someone broken. All of it now belonged to the shell company I owned. He was the tenant. I left a single note on the kitchen counter. No threats, no drama. Just one sentence, typed in bold. Nobody forgets. Winning doesn't feel like I thought it would. It doesn't come with fireworks or closure. It comes quietly with emails no longer being returned and people crossing the street to avoid making eye contact. At first, I brushed it off, told myself I didn't need applause. I needed impact. I had dismantled a dynasty built on control and lies. I had rewritten my name into power. But power, I was learning, was a currency that came at a quiet cost. I stopped calling people back, ignored birthday messages. When someone from my old university invited me to speak at a women's leadership panel, I declined without reading the full email. I told myself it was focus, strategy, discipline, it was detachment. Leona, the media consultant who once helped me reshape my narrative, was the first to say it out loud. "You're becoming them," she said over black coffee one morning. Cold, efficient, unreachable. I stared at her. "You think I should care what people think after everything they did?" "No," she said, "but you used to care what you thought, and I don't think you recognize yourself anymore." I laughed, but it was hollow. I had spent so long fighting for my name that I'd forgotten what the voice behind it used to sound like. Then it happened. Clara, my oldest friend, someone who once drove cross-country just to sit with me after a breakup, showed up unannounced at my apartment. She stood in the doorway, eyes full of something worse than anger. "Emma," she said softly, "I don't recognize you anymore." She didn't shout, didn't plead, just turned and walked away, and something in me cracked. Later that night, I sat in the dark with a glass of untouched wine, scrolling through my files like I was looking for something I had already lost. I pulled up surveillance footage of myself, walking through meetings, giving cold nods, eyes calculated. I was watching a stranger wearing my face. The next morning, a letter arrived. Handwritten, no return address. I recognized the slant of the cursive instantly. My mother. The woman who'd left when I was 13. The woman I'd resented in silence. The woman I had stopped believing was real. The letter was short. "Emma, they made me feel insane too. I disappeared to survive. I see you now doing what I couldn't. But don't let the victory turn you into them. Please. Love, Mom." I sat there, paper trembling in my hands, as the silence around me thickened. She had vanished once to stay alive, and I had burned everything to make sure I didn't. But maybe I had become a fire no one could stand near. That night, I began deleting old interviews, anonymous forum posts, public records, contracts tied to my name. I shut down Nobody Incor's redirected funds, to an untraceable trust, erased every digital thread I could find, and then I left. No press release, no final post. I just disappeared. I bought a cabin in a coastal village where no one asked for LinkedIn accounts or backstories. The air smelled like pine and ocean salt. My days became simple. Wake, walk, read, repeat. I didn't miss the city. I missed the version of myself that could sleep without needing a threat assessment. Months passed. Then, one evening, I found an envelope wedged under my door. No name, just a Polaroid inside. A young woman, eyes wide, lip bleeding, holding a phone in one hand, a baby in the other. On the back, a sentence. "You're the only one who knows how to stop him." I sat on the floor, photo clenched in my fist, breath shallow. The pain in her eyes was one I had memorized. The way her shoulders curled inward, the desperation in the silence. It was me, a lifetime ago. I thought I had left that part behind, thought I had done enough. But as I looked at that photo, I realized monsters don't retire, and women like her don't survive without someone lighting a path. I stared at the fire in my hearth, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel numb. I felt ready. I returned to the world quietly. No fanfare, no headlines, just a burner phone, an encrypted server, and a new name. They thought I disappeared. What I did was rebuild. In a basement beneath an abandoned bookstore in Portland, the first meeting began. 5 women, different ages, races, lives, same silence in their eyes, same bruises you couldn't see. We didn't introduce ourselves. Names were optional. Histories were sacred. I didn't ask what their husbands did. I asked what they were ready to do. We called it Mirror Protocol. It wasn't an organization. It was an awakening, a system designed to train the broken into brilliant, not victims, not warriors, architects. We taught strategy, not empowerment cliches or borrowed slogans, but frameworks. How to open offshore accounts legally, how to detect digital surveillance, how to reverse gaslighting patterns, how to document abuse that wouldn't hold up in court until it did. They learned voice modulation, micro-expression analysis, forensic memory recall. One woman with a background in UX design redesigned our emotional trigger maps. Another, once a paralegal, created templates for restraining orders that judges couldn't ignore. We didn't post about it. No hashtags, no TED Talks. We left fingerprints. A news anchor who suddenly quit mid-broadcast to file a lawsuit. A tech CEO's wife who reappeared 3 years after being declared missing and owned 40% of his shares. A nanny with no high school diploma who exposed an underground trafficking ring by mailing a USB drive to 3 journalists and vanishing. They thought it was random. It was protocol. I never stepped into the spotlight again. My name became irrelevant, but the method spread, coded into podcasts, slipped into subreddits, whispered in shelters, disguised as fiction. Then, one evening, after a training session in a safe house in Denver, a woman approached me. She had been silent the whole session, only observing. But as the others left, she stayed behind, hands trembling. "I need to tell you something," she whispered. I nodded. "My name is Lily. My brother is Alex." I didn't speak. My breath locked in my chest. She looked nothing like him, softer, quieter. Her eyes, though, held the same fire. "I watched him destroy you," she said. "I was 16. I tried to stop him. I failed." She pulled a flash drive from her pocket. "This has everything. His backups, voice memos, legal agreements, even footage he deleted." I took it with steady hands. "Why now?" Her voice cracked. "Because my husband, he's starting to sound like him." We stood in silence. 2 women, 2 timelines, 1 system. And I knew then, we weren't fixing individuals. We were dismantling legacy. A week later, I wrote 1 sentence on an anonymous blog buried deep within a forum most people had long abandoned. "Don't let them teach you what love is." I logged out. Closed the laptop, never opened the account again. Within days, the quote spread. It appeared on Instagram infographics, tattooed on forearms, scribbled on college whiteboards. It ended up in the footnotes of a best-selling psychology textbook on emotional abuse. They didn't know where it came from. I didn't care. They felt it. That's all I ever wanted. I refused every interview, every book deal, every podcast request. When asked for statements, I responded only once. No comment, just mirror. 3 years passed. Then one night, somewhere far from where it all began, I walked past a quiet apartment window and caught a reflection I didn't expect. A young woman, barely 20, sitting in front of a mirror. Eyes swollen from crying, hands clenched. She stared at herself like she was about to break. And then, she whispered 3 words under her breath. Mirror protocol initiated. I kept walking. But in that moment, I knew. It had worked. It was working. And I didn't need to be remembered. I just needed the system to echo.